They told me she was a little bigger, like it was a warning. My cousin smirked. My aunt whispered an apology before I even walked in the door. Everyone expected me to make an excuse and leave, but the moment I saw her sitting alone at that table, nervously folding her napkin into smaller and smaller squares, something in my chest just stopped. I wasn't looking at what they wanted me to see. I was looking at someone who reminded me of my daughter, 20 years from now, hoping a stranger would be kind. What I did next left my whole family speechless. I never wanted to go on that blind date. Let me be honest about that from the start. I'm 44 years old, a widower, and I raised my daughter Mia on my own. Dating is not something I think about much anymore. But my sister Carol wouldn't stop calling. Just one dinner, she said. Her name is Rachel. She's sweet, she's smart, she works at the library. Please, David, just give her a chance. I finally agreed because Carol never asks me for anything, and because Mia, who is 12, kept saying, "Dad, you deserve to be happy too." That got me. Kids know exactly which words will break you open, so I put on my good the navy one Mia picked out and drove to the restaurant Carol picked. Small Italian place downtown, candles on every table, soft music. The kind of place you take someone when you want the night to matter. When I walked in, my cousin Danny was already there, sitting at the bar pretending to check his phone, but clearly waiting to watch this unfold. That should have told me something right away. "Hey man," he said, standing up too fast, laughing a little too hard. "So listen, before you go over there, she's a bigger girl, just so you're not caught off guard." I remember staring at him, not because I was shocked by what he said, but because of how he said it. Like he was preparing me for bad news. Like this was a warning I needed. "Why are you telling me that?" I asked. He shrugged. "Just didn't want you to be surprised." Behind him, my Aunt Linda was already mouthing, "I'm sorry," from across the room, like she'd made a mistake setting this up. Like she owed me an apology for introducing me to a woman who wasn't thin. I felt something twist in my stomach, and it wasn't nerves about the date. It was something closer to shame, but not my own. Shame for them. I walked past Danny toward the table in the back corner, and that's when I saw her. Rachel was sitting with her hands in her lap, glancing at the door every few seconds, then looking away fast like she didn't want to seem too eager. She had kind eyes, dark hair pulled back. She was folding the corner of her napkin over and over, this small, nervous habit, and when she finally saw me walking toward her, she sat up straighter and tried to smile like she was bracing for disappointment. I understood that look immediately. I had seen it before, on my late wife's face, years before I ever knew her. When she told me about the boys in high school who made fun of her weight until she stopped eating lunch in the cafeteria altogether. She told me that story once, crying, years into our marriage, like the wound never fully closed even after everything. And I thought about Mia. About the world she is growing up in, where girls learn to measure their worth in inches and pounds before they even understand what worth means. I thought, what kind of man do I want my daughter to see when she looks at me? So I sat down across from Rachel and I smiled, the real kind, not the polite kind. "Sorry I'm a little late," I said. "Traffic downtown was rough." "It's okay," she said quietly, still watching my face like she expected it to change any second. Like she expected me to make an excuse and leave, the way I later learned other dates had done before. We started talking, slowly at first. She told me she'd worked at the library for 9 years, that she loved mystery novels, that she volunteered reading books to kids at the children's hospital every other Saturday. Her whole face changed when she talked about those kids. She lit up. "They don't care what I look like," she said, laughing softly. "They just want the story." "That's the best kind of audience," I said, and she laughed for real that time. I noticed, out of the corner of my eye, that Danny had somehow ended up at a table near enough to watch us, along with 2 of my other cousins who had coincidentally shown up. My Aunt Linda kept glancing over like she was watching a car accident happen in slow motion. I understood then that this whole dinner had become some kind of show for them, a test to see how long I'd stay before finding a reason to leave. I decided right there I wasn't going to give them what they wanted. I ordered dessert. 2 spoons, 1 plate, tiramisu, because Rachel mentioned it was her favorite and her eyes actually widened with surprise. Like no one had ever offered to share dessert with her before. Like sharing food was somehow too intimate for someone who looked like her to be offered. That broke something in me a little. That someone could be made to feel like even sharing a plate of dessert was a privilege they had to earn. "You know," I told her, "my late wife used to say, the measure of a good date is whether you laugh more than you check your phone. By that measure, you're doing great." Rachel put her spoon down and looked at me for a long moment. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure. Did someone warn you about me before you walked in?" I could have lied. It would have been easier. But I didn't want to build anything, even something small, on a lie. Yeah, I said. My cousin gave me a heads up. Said you were a bigger girl, like I needed to brace myself. Her face fell a little, and I hated that I'd caused it, but I kept going. And I want you to know that the second he said it, I felt embarrassed for him. Not for you, for him. Because he thought that was information I needed. Like your size was the headline instead of literally anything else about who you are. She blinked fast, and I saw her eyes go glassy. Most guys leave, she said quietly. Or they stay and you can tell they're just being polite, counting the minutes. I'm not most guys, I said. And for what it's worth, I run a small channel online, Hero Dad Stories, where I talk about raising my daughter alone, trying to teach her what real character looks like. Tonight, without even trying, you taught me something I want to tell her about. Rachel actually laughed through tears at that, wiping her eyes with her napkin, the same napkin she'd been anxiously folding 20 minutes earlier. By the end of the night, we'd talked for almost 2 hours. Not about her weight, not about the whispers in the room behind us. We talked about books, about her nephews, about my daughter, about grief, about the strange and stubborn hope it takes to say yes to a blind date after years of people making you feel like an afterthought. When I walked her to her car, Danny caught up to me in the parking lot, grinning like we'd shared some inside joke. So, you surviving, he said. I looked at him, and for the first time all night, I let my irritation show. She's one of the kindest people I've talked to in years, I said. And next time you feel the need to warn someone about a woman's weight before they even say hello to her, maybe ask yourself why that's the first thing you think matters. He didn't have a comeback for that. He just looked away, embarrassed the way I'd hoped he would. I drove home that night with the radio off, thinking about Mia asleep upstairs, about the kind of father I wanted to be reflected back at her one day. I thought about my late wife, about the cafeteria she used to eat lunch in alone. I thought about how cruelty often doesn't look like cruelty at all. Sometimes it looks like a whispered warning meant to protect you from something that was never a threat to begin with. Rachel and I went out again the next week, and the week after that. It wasn't some fairy tale where everything turned perfect overnight, but it was real, and it was kind, and it started with one decision, to see a person instead of a number. I told this story to Mia eventually, and she asked me the question that mattered most. Dad, were you scared everyone would judge you for liking her? No, I said. I was scared of who I'd become if I let them decide who was worth my time. That's the lesson I hope stays with you tonight. The people who warn you about someone's flaws before you've even said hello are usually revealing their own. Kindness costs nothing, but the moment you choose it over cruelty, over gossip, over the easy laugh at someone else's expense, you find out exactly what kind of person you really are. And sometimes, the person everyone warned you about turns out to be the one who was never the problem at all.